Let's go back to our top story this evening. In 2019, John and Sandra Lush were killed in a highway accident. Their daughter had serious injuries. The fourth person in the car was left paralyzed from the waist down. A 22-year-old was accused of drunk driving causing death, but Nicholas Villeneuve is free tonight. He was acquitted on all 8 charges this morning because the case against him fell apart. Evidence had to be thrown out, and the judge in the case decided Villeneuve's charter rights were violated. Patricia Hynes-Coates is the local president of Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and she joins me now. Patricia, first of all, I'd like to get your reaction to the acquittal in this case today.
It's devastating. Right now there's no justice for the families or for the victims. As you were speaking, I had chills. I am devastated. I can only imagine what I would have felt if this had been the outcome of Nicholas's case. However, there's 2 people who have lost their lives and 2 people who are seriously injured, and it's heartbreaking and it's tragic and it's devastating. We just hope that there will be some accountability, that there will be some changes in the future that will stop the outcome that happened today.
You lost your stepson to a drunk driver in 2013, so I know you can speak very personally to this. How hard is something like this on families?
It's beyond devastating. Words cannot describe the heartache and the pain that a family feels when they lose someone to an impaired driving crash in such a tragic and preventable way. What this family must be going through, the heartache, the devastation, I have to relive this every day and find that there was just no justice, has to be destroying them both inside and out.
Do victims have any recourse after an acquittal like this?
That's a good question. I mean, you can appeal if possible, and you can go civilly against the impaired driver. But for us at MAD, we will be there to support them as families who have lost a loved one. We know the devastation, so we will be there to help them if they want our help, and they have reached out to our Gander chapter. But all we can do now for us with the organization is dig our heels in and try to make change. This is why my husband and I have been involved in public policy since the day we buried Nicholas. It's because changes have to be made. This is one more loophole, one more injustice that has happened that needs to change. So we need to dig our heels in and find a way to close these loopholes so that there will be no more cases like this in the future.
Just as we finish up now, obviously the message still isn't getting through to a lot of people. What would be the very first change you would make in this province?
That's a good question. For me, right now I'm working on changes to the legislation for the civil aspect of the Fatal Accident Act. I've been working with the government to make changes so that it is more inclusive. But right now we need to make sure we close these loopholes. There's no explanation, no justification for what happened today. And I know there's things that we don't know. We don't know the full process. We don't know all the details. But we need to find out what happened and we need to prevent it. So for us, with MAD, the organization, we'll be looking at this very closely, and we will work with the provincial and federal government to try to prevent this from happening, provided they're willing to make these changes. And we have to always remember, we have to uphold the Charter of Rights, because that is one of the things that does need to be altered, but it needs to be altered to be more inclusive and make sure that we cover all aspects so that we protect people in the future. Impaired driving is still rampant in our province, in our country. It has to stop. People need to start remembering they need to be accountable for what they're doing. If you choose to use drugs, you choose to use alcohol, that's your choice, but don't get behind the wheel. Driving is a privilege, it's not a right, and we need to all be accountable for what we're doing.
Patricia Hynes-Coates, local president of Mothers Against Drunk Driving, I want to thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you so much for having me.